'Twas twilight I now journeyed, with my quest at last complete. And toward my childhood home I moved, in glory, not retreat. Returning from my trek across these too well-traveled roads, I came upon a trail the brush had long since overgrown. Curious, I steered my mare where a track curved round a hill, and found its end did open upon a small and humble ville. What finer place to end my days, now that my duty's done? Mayhap forget the war, now that my battle's nearly won. Mayhap I'll find a dame who'll take delight in all my tales, of how I've come to fame, of my successes and my travails. We'll find comfort in the darkness, and some warmth to bear the cold, and to each other hearken each other's needs as we grow old. With this in mind I hustled, as the townfolk came to view, a merry lot of bustlers working, whilst the sky turned dusk in hue. And so arriving in the square, I worked to unravel my cloak, whilst through my hair I combed, to look presentable to folk. The people here were simple men with simple wives, simple jobs and simple homes, simple children, simple lives. But trotting through the town, my heart filled with pride and with delight. I nodded as they bowed. These folk had ne'er seen a knight. 'Twas then that I first spied a comely lass not mongst the crowd, for she alone denied the welcome fanfare that I'd found. Her arms were crossed, her mouth a frown, her eyes a steely glare. On her my charms not only lost, but her stance bespoke a dare. This maid was fair and strong, her deep brown eyes so caught with light. She caused my heart to long, my breath to catch upon her sight. So I cinched the reins and moved the crowd, which now had grown quite dense, and made my way beyond them to her, where she leaned on yonder fence. This fence guarded a cottage, small and plain like all the rest. It stood in quiet homage to a life void of excess. And so addressing her I asked, would this be your fine home, dear miss? Impressing her, I thought, my knightly frame and eloquence. She eyed me over a moment, asking, what is it that you want? You have a look about you, that of wolf out on the hunt. Assuring her I meant no harm, in hopes to ease her stress, my time has come to lay down arms. I only seek a place to rest. But her manner didn't change, and then quite mockingly she said, mayhap you'd best arrange some other place to lay your head. I know you have one thing in mind, to charm and then abuse. You won't stay here in my house. I won't be your one-night muse. I answered, don't misunderstand, nor think I'll take advantage. Your courtesy I won't demand, 'twould never take for granted. And then dismounting from my horse, I knelt and whispered in her ear these words that should, of course, have maidens want to hold me dear. My silvered plate doth cast a glare, reflecting midday's sun. The barding draped across my mare is matched, we move as one. These crimson plumes atop my helm, a sign of noble battle. And as we move through forest elms, my chain doth softly rattle. My shield, it bears my herald's crest, a symbol worn with pride. And like a hornet in its nest, my roundels on my side. This heavy blade upon my hip, crafted to do my bidding, its honed down to the sharpest tip, and its pommel firm and fitting. And finally, my banner sits atop my polearm's end, to warn my foes, once I commit, might break, but never bend. 'Twas thus I was adorned, whilst to this maid I did profess, but found her to be bored with chivalrous and knightly mess. And though my eyes were glistened with prideful tears of hard-wrought honor, it seemed she hardly listened as I'd laid my tale upon her. She paused in thought a moment, then it seemed suppressed a yawn, and when she spoke, I noticed the light in her eyes now gone. The last knight that had passed this way was armored to impress, and on that night he asked that he might be my honored guest. 'Tis no more fight, at last this weary sword can lay to rest. But by morning light I found him, tasked again upon his quest. See, I've heard this fairy tale from every man that's come before, and found it never fails. 'Tis always honor falsely sworn. So I've learned not to expect a man might live up to his promise. My heart you won't affect, good sir, you speak not to a novice. These words she spoke, they pierced me ever gravely as a lance, and so I broke quite fiercely my prostrated kneeling stance. My chest grew wider as I rose, my expression cold and pert. I knew the next words that I chose to chastise her might hurt, but I could not let this insult 'gainst my knightly order pass. A good tongue lashing might set straight this misguided brazen lass. I fear you are mistaken, or mayhap you speak in jest. My dear, these accusations I vehemently protest. I've the scars I've earned in battles fought to teach me noble bearing, and all the courtly lessons learned have made me strong but caring. A knight like me must treat you right, and never seek to hurt you, exemplary in manners, honor, faith, and in good virtue. But whilst spewing forth this speech about knightly virtues set on high, across the yard a brightly colored ribbon caught my eye. It dangled from the sconce set up above her cottage door, a tangled bow of ponce, a handsome trinket, nothing more. 'Twas scarlet as a pimpernel, and embroidered long its edge was a stately row of church bells, set in two with golden thread. Then my voice trailed off without me, as my glance became a stare, for the ribbon brought back memory of some long forgot affair. I recalled how I'd passed here before, when not much more than squire, back when I'd worn it in my hair as a part of my attire. How I'd met this lovely girl here, and soon passions twixt us burned, and I'd given her this ribbon as a promise to return. 'Twill be less than a year, my love, the battlefront already slimming. My darling, do not fear, our love is only just beginning. But I never made it back, always more battles worth the winning. Now 20 years had passed, her memory ever slowly thinning. Could this be that young girl that I'd abandoned in my hurry, to conquer all the world when I began my lifelong journey? And then I saw, when next I looked upon her spite-filled face, the shadow of that foolish girl I had left behind disgraced. For all my knightly honor, earned and learned o'er these years, had I ever really pondered that poor lonely maiden's tears? And there I stood. I felt a fool for having bent my knee. My charms no good, a useless tool. No words would mend my deeds. 'Twas my fault this romance was doomed before it had its start, for I had promised I would stay but walked away and broke her heart. And thus I left the town again, face ashen in remorse, and set out on the trail again to plot another course.